We've been fostering for 8 years now. We've had 16 kiddos come into our home.
Watching that hearing that day and watching this mom who was incarcerated at the time, and I knew just something about her. I was like, this mom's going to do whatever it takes to get those kids back.
Yeah.
And she did.
He would bite himself. It was his coping mechanism. And so he would come in and he would bite across his thumb. He had gone from needing to learn 6 words in 6 months to learning 10 words in 1 month.
Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, the entire weekend.
Whole weekend.
That's right.
With the baby that was in the NICU and then was getting out. I mean, like, was doing well. But I remember thinking, this is a really strange Mother's Day.
But in our case, 94%.
Yeah.
Only 1 out of 16 has been adopted. So that's 94 versus 50%.
Yeah.
And I think that's the Lord going,
Yeah,
this is what I've called you to do. Welcome to another episode of the Open Homes Initiative podcast, where we put names and faces to numbers and statistics in the foster, kinship, and adoptive arena, especially around West Texas and the Concho Valley. Together, we're working towards a day when there's no longer a list of children waiting for a family, but a list of families ready for children. And so as we do these podcasts, we get to share stories. We get to highlight different aspects of this system. And sometimes it is joyous and uplifting, but oftentimes it's hard and difficult. And many of the previous podcasts we've done have been really highlighting the difficulties of life in the system or of dealing with the different trauma and experiences that come with this broken part of our society. So what we wanted to do with this episode is tell some stories from my personal family and some of the joys, a little bit of the pains, but mostly the joys of what we've experienced. And so I get to talk with my beautiful wife of 20, how many years? 21. She always gets on to me because I say it and then she rounds up.
I do.
And so 21 years of doing life together, and that's a lot of stories. I don't think I mentioned your name. This is Chelsea, and we've been fostering for 8 years now. We've had 16 kiddos come into the system, come into our home. And what else? What am I missing in just kind of introducing our family?
Yeah, we have 3 biological daughters, all teenagers right now. One who is actually graduating from high school this very week.
Whoop, whoop. Graduation.
So getting ready to launch her into the real world, if you will. But yeah, had 16 kiddos, currently having number 15 and 16 in our home. So.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of stories in there. We've got, like you said, 3 bio daughters. One's graduating. One turned 16 last week. So it's a crazy
just starting to drive
season for us. And one really coming into her own in some of the sports arenas and volleyball. We
teenagers and then 2 toddlers.
And then 2 toddlers. Yeah. We were at a volleyball game last night watching them enjoy that. And then holding the babies in the midst of the stands is...
Wrestling
could be a better word.
Yeah. Wrestling the toddlers. So very interesting, chaotic season we have going on.
Lots and lots, yes, going on. So let's tell a little more of our history. How did we come to even where we sit today? What was kind of the things that started us down the path of fostering? And this is definitely your story to tell, at least the origins of it.
Well, just... back in, 2016 or so, I really just felt more impressed by the Lord, really, to maybe at least get inclinations into foster care and what it was. And so kind of on my own went out looking for information, went to informational meetings, heard some different podcasts or things at different churches, and just kind of left it there for a little bit. I even at one point looked into becoming a CASA volunteer and thought, no, I really don't want to do that. I don't want to go sit in court and do all of those things. So I'd even kind of sought out different ways to get involved and landed at, no, I think we definitely could be the ones that foster, but we just can't right now. With the place that we lived was just very small. Our kids were basically sleeping on top of each other. And so I kind of made this deal, if you will, with God and said, I will do anything that you ask of me. But right now doesn't seem the right time. If in the future you want to give us a larger home and make those opportunities available, I will do it. I'll do whatever you ask. And he did. he gave us, in some really crazy turn of events, a larger home, and at a time when you and I didn't even have jobs. And that's probably for a whole other podcast. But he did. And so it was at that point I had no more excuses, no more reasons in my mind. And so I said, well, kind of laid that before you and said, I really feel like the Lord's telling us we need to do this. Open our home to people. He's given us this home. He's blessed us with it, and we can't hoard it and just hold it for ourselves. So we need to be generous with it. And that kind of started the road. We just looked into different agencies and landed with the one we went with and started that process of getting licensed. And then I kind of came to the point of, we actually started tiptoeing into foster care by doing Respite, which I, to this day, still highly encourage people to do, because it kind of gives you the sense of like, can I even do this? You know? And so we did Respite care for a couple of families. I think one was maybe a week long, one was just a weekend. I mean, people need respite for different reasons. And so we did that for a few times, and our girls loved it. They loved having extra kids in the house and kind of having these extra friends around. It was meeting a need for people, which we felt was valuable. And honestly, it kind of dispelled, I think, some of the myths that we might have had, like maybe we didn't necessarily voice them, but you kind of go, could we do this? Those kids that are in foster care, and really you get these kids in your home and you're like, they're just kids.
Yes.
They're just kids. And I can raise 3 kids. I mean, I'm doing it fairly okay with my own. They're alive. Why? At that point, like, what's a couple more? I did it for a weekend. I did it for a week. What's a couple months? What's, you know, and so then we were licensed fully doing respite care and finally got our very first placement in 2019.
Yes.
A sibling set of older kiddos, school-aged kiddos, and had them for 13 months.
Yep.
And
so we went from 1 weekend to 1 week to 1 year.
To 1 year. Why not? It was great, though. It was a good succession for us into just what that looked like. And I think it was good for our girls, too, to kind of, like, just do that. Yeah. And so that's the very beginning of our foster care.
It's kind of the stepping stones in that. So we, in 2016, like you mentioned, you started kind of that, and then we stepped away, had no job, stepped away from a church job, and started working towards starting a church, planting a church. And then in that year, started also a business to flip houses. And then in that, ended up getting the new house that we lived in. It was incredible, just God's story of basically same price but increasing 800 square foot. And so that allowed us to kind of move into this. And so over the next couple of years went down that process, and it was a multi-year journey for me, kind of watching you fall in love's the wrong word, but growing in passion for the kids, these vulnerable kiddos, and just their stories and the difficulties in that. And in that time also my sister started the foster closet here in San Angelo. It was kind of how do we get going?
Me and her we had been talking about all of this, and me and her had gone to some informational meetings together and went to Brownwood one time. I heard Jason Johnson speak one time in Brownwood, and she'd come with that. And so she was starting the foster closet. She was one that was like, we need to help. I see the need. We need to do something about it. And so
But couldn't foster.
But yeah, couldn't foster at the time. She went down the same kind of road, same kind of things with housing and whatnot issues. And so she was like, well, the least I can do is do this. And so I started the foster closet of San Angelo, which was housed at the time out of College Hills Baptist Church. So it was a part of their ministry. They did that well for so many years, and it's still functioning and running today. And we volunteer often there. We help with that still. And yeah, that kind of was also all at this time, where the Lord was like, hey, I'm going to move some pieces together. I'm going to shift some things, move things together, because what I'm stirring in your heart is good, but it's not the only thing I'm stirring and starting. And so I think he used it to just launch this huge thing that really has impacted our family personally, but really our greater family. Like
Yes.
it's a whole, your sister and your parents, and it's just kind of
And
been
your parents.
in this ministry,
Yes.
if you will, of like, hey, we're doing this. We're going all in.
Yep.
We're going to do whatever it takes to meet these needs.
Yep.
And so, yeah, we did do that in 2018. You're right, is
And
when
now-
the foster closet started.
And it's spread from there to a church, and now
Mm-hmm.
we've got great reach all around the city of really speaking into what fostering looks like and coaching people and supporting people. And
Yeah.
it has been a very interesting, very neat, very God-ordained in many ways progression through that
Yeah.
entire process. So for this episode, we want to tell some more of these stories. So that's who we are. That's where we've been. And so let's tell some of the stories. Let's put some names and faces to some of these numbers and statistics. And let's quickly just kind of touch on some of the difficulties we've had. We realize fostering is difficult. We've done a number of podcasts on that. We've walked through a number of difficult situations, and if we talk too much about those, then we'll cry and all of those kind of things, and we'll ruin the makeup and the face for the rest of the episode. But some of the things we've walked through, we've had to do what they've called put in a 30-day. We've had to have kiddos removed from our home because it did not work out. The placement did not, and that's a very, very difficult thing to do. We've had kiddos go back to families in situations where we didn't necessarily think that they should. Had kids that did not treat our bio kids well, and we've had to navigate those systems. We've had kids that were just terrified of me in particular, of men in general, and trying to navigate some of those systems. And we've gone through the difficulty of trying to figure out what daycare looks like. And we homeschool, and so how do we navigate so many of those kind of issues around the public school system? There's a number of things that we've walked through and we could touch on, but in the midst of all of those, there are just as many beautiful, incredible, inspiring stories in the midst of that. So we face the difficulties, but let's talk some on what's a story that maybe stands out as to realizing that regardless of the difficulty, what we're doing really matters, and there's an impact that we can make. There's one in particular that maybe stands out most to you. I've got one in my mind.
Go for it. You go first, and I'll pick you back off of that.
One that stands out to me is a young boy that was 2 years old, came into our home. And if you listen to the podcast that we did interviewing my bio daughter, she mentioned a young boy that had scars on his hand because he would bite himself. It was his coping mechanism. And so he would come in and he would bite across his thumb, right about there. And so right across his thumb he had just scars. And he was nonverbal. And he would, I don't know the terms. I've gone blank on the term, but he had very big emotions, and so he would go into yelling and screaming fits, and the like. And so when he first came in, very early on, we were going, wait, we don't know if we can do this. We don't know if we can handle this. We don't know if we're equipped for this. He would throw toys especially at our youngest daughter, somebody he felt he could at least intimidate or push back against. And so it was a really difficult situation there. But the thing that stood out to me, we were 1 month in with him, and ECI, which is a group that comes in to help kiddos.
Early childhood intervention. So they come in and help kids get back on track with a variety of developmental issues. And so they came in a month in, and they had already seen him, and they said... And assessed him prior.
Right. They had assessed him at a previous placement, and they said he is occupationally, so physically, motor skills, everything, he is above average, but educationally or cognitively, he is well below average. And it dawned on me at that moment that very quickly, and I don't say this lightly, but very quickly the system that was around him had already labeled him, because he was a young black kiddo, had essentially labeled him as a young black jock. And that's what was going through my mind. If he continues in the current course from even right now at 2 years old, he's going to have this stigma, right? And so what we had seen in the first month of having him was not that in the least. He was incredibly bright, but he was cognitively or language delayed. And so they'd said, when they came in, they said, our goal for the first 6 months that he's here, we want to learn 6 words within 6 months. And we looked at him and we said, are you serious? And they said, well, yes, he's so far behind. And we said, he's learned 10 words since he got here. Mm-hmm. And so in 1 month time of the focus and attention and the wrapping around this kiddo with care, he had gone from needing to learn 6 words in 6 months to learning 10 words in 1 month. And so they looked at me, and it was interesting because it's maybe the only time I've done this, but Chelsea wasn't at this meeting. I was the one there with ECI, mm-hmm. and they said, okay, well, let's make a new 6-month goal then.
Yeah, like on paper, he looked completely different.
Yes.
From what they had seen prior to what they were looking at now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they said, okay, let's make a new 6-month goal. We want him to learn 25 words in the next 6 months. How much help do you want us to give? And I looked at him and I said, if that's your goal, then none. We don't need. He's going to learn. He's going to learn another 20, 25 really words well. In the next month, in the next 3 months. And sure enough, we had him for about 6 months, mm-hmm. and he had learned more than 50 words in our home, and 2 of them in particular ring out in my ears. Right, every single time when I would walk in mm-hmm. the door, what would he do?
Daddy home.
He would say, Daddy home, and he would mm-hmm. run to the door mm-hmm. as fast as he could.
And we still say that to this day.
We do.
Like, because at the time you had, I guess, the truck, and it had a very large exhaust, or very loud exhaust.
With a very weak horn.
But we could hear it coming down the driveway or in the alley. And so, I mean, he would hear it and he'd go, Daddy home. And so now, to this day, he's been out of our home for 4 or 5 years, mm-hmm. and to this day our girls will still say Daddy home, because it's just it just sunk deep into our heart to hear him say those words. A meant he was developing cognitively.
Yes.
B meant relationally, mm-hmm. because now he had de-escalate it enough where he wasn't screaming and biting all of the time, and he was able to communicate his needs and his wants and understand what you were telling him to do. And so he made strides just being in, and this isn't to make much of us. This is just to say that given the right environment, that given the better circumstances and the right attention and the support that these kids need, they make strides in such short amount of time.
Yes.
And even over years. I mean, they'll continue to make strides. And so what we saw in that child, I mean, he eventually moved after 6 months. He moved to another placement mm-hmm. so he could be with another sibling. And that sibling was in a whole different situation and case, was not a part of this case, but was going to possibly be adopted. And so he would move to that placement so that mm-hmm. he might be adopted with them. And so that was the reason for him leaving our home.
Yes.
And when we took him, and I even, when typically what happens is CPS will come and pick them up and transport them to the next placement or whatever. And this one in particular, I remember saying, no, we will transport him. We will take him. Mm-hmm. And we took him and dropped him off. And I remember, like, as hard as some of those days were, and as hard as facing and feeling ill-equipped, or facing days when he might have kind of been aggressive towards our kiddos and things, mm-hmm. as hard as all that was, we were in tears whole way home from dropping him off. And I was just so concerned with him. And is he going to know? Is he going to understand? Yeah. Of course not. I mean, he was 2.5 at the time. Yep. But it was like, it was that, okay, God, I know this is the next right step.
Right.
And it is hard, but it's also so good to go, wow, look at how far he came and where he's headed. He had a really bright future ahead of him. And so it was good to be a part of that, even though it wrecked us and tore us apart.
It was
but we look back
emotional
now,
drive home.
And we look back now with fondness on that whole season, really, and going like, it was totally worth it. And I couldn't even really tell you all of the ins and outs of the hard days as much as I can sit there and go, wow, Daddy home.
Yes.
And it brings joy to us to be able to say that.
And then remember his infectious laugh.
Yes. Yes. So sweet, so precious.
Yeah. We've got in our hallway just, we call it the foster wall, and just pictures of each of these kiddos that were in our homes, and he's a fun one to look at, and you see this big smile, and you can almost hear the voice.
You
can hear the laugh.
Yeah,
you can hear him trying to act like Donald Duck with my grandmother. You can hear these kind of things, and so that's one of them that sticks out to me. What's another one for you?
What sticks out really more to me is the relationships that we built over multiple placements with the biological families.
Okay.
And I mean that to say not all of them were the same. Not all of them fared well. But in most cases, I was able to at least have some kind of contact with the biological family. And I believe all of those cases were like parents. Mm-hmm. And one in particular, I remember being on a court hearing. It was actually via Zoom because at the time it was like 2021, everything was still Zoom. And in this particular case, mom was incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And I'm on the Zoom call, and I had spoken, and they gave me an opportunity to speak up, to say something. And I remember saying to her on that, I said, well, I just wanted to say I'm actually so very glad to have your children in our home. Fortunate that we have to meet like this, but they're wonderful kids. Got to speak into that a little bit. And on that call, they say, okay, we can dismiss Miss Smith at this time, or she can stay on. We're going to be discussing kind of your part in this case, speaking to the mom. And she said, well, she's got my kids. She has every right to know what's going on. I thought that was, one, very respectful of her.
Yes.
And so, but I knew watching that hearing that day and watching this mom who was incarcerated at the time, and I knew just something about her. I was like, this mom's going to do whatever it takes to get those kids back. Yeah. And she did. Mm-hmm. And she did it in like record time, if you will, because the odds are stacked against them, what they have to go through, if I'm honest. It feels like insurmountable. And I mean, I'm sitting here about to launch our 18-year-old into the world and thinking she basically has to do all the same things, right?
Yes.
How is she going to do this?
But she doesn't have to battle addiction while doing it, thankfully.
Right. Battle addiction, battle in the justice system and incarceration and things like that, and get back on your feet and have housing and have a way to get to and from visits and a job and sustain and keep all of that while also working all these services that they're, and so it is a lot. But she did it, and we, after they were reunified, we were still able to have relationship with them. She let them call us, and we'd video talk with them, and that was great to see and enjoy. And we have a few situations like that with different biological families, which are bright spots to me of going, like, this is hard, and it can be super awkward, possibly, but I love that when we break down the walls as foster parents and we say, hey, like, it's not about me versus you. It's we're in this together. We're co-parenting these kids in a sense. I want to come alongside you and support you and help you, and really for the betterment of the children. Then that they're able to let their guard down, and they're, from what I have seen in our experience, pretty receptive to it. And
well, you have one story where we had a kiddo we just had him for 30 days. That was it, and we knew that going into it, but within that time frame was a visitation with mom, and then a court appearance as well. And tell us that.
Yeah, we showed up at visitation, and mom and dad were there, and some other siblings who were in different places. We'd all come together to have this visitation, and man, I didn't know her from Adam, obviously, and I just walked up to her and gave her a big old hug and said, hey, it's so good to meet you, and gave her baby and said, he's so precious. You've done so well with him. He's so cute. I just loved on her, and honestly, she didn't really talk to me much at that point. I was like, okay, bye, and came back and picked him up in 2 hours. I mean, that was the end of it. And then we were on a conference call regarding the court hearing and whatnot, and she used time in that to speak into me. She said, may I address the foster parents? I just want to say that I'm just so grateful for them and what they're doing, thankful that they're taking care of my baby, and it makes me feel really good to know that he's being taken care of. And I just thought, oh, that's just gold to me, to be like, okay. Because as a mom, it doesn't matter the circumstances surrounding it. I would want someone to do that for me, to take care of my kids no matter what's going on, and to do it non-judgmentally, like without any preconceived notions, just to do it because that's what we do as moms. We're going to take care of them. And so it was gold to hear her say that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many ups, so many downs, so many memories with a bunch of these. I think there's some of the other difficulties. One of the big lessons I think that we learned, or one of the ways that what we do as foster parents really hit home the most was in the story of the one. We've only taken one home from the hospital.
We have, yeah.
And you spent Mother's Day, what year was that? 23?
No. 2022, I
2022.
think.
Mother's Day of 2022.
Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah,
I was
the
there
entire
the
weekend.
whole weekend
That's
with the baby that was in the NICU and then was getting out. I mean, like, was doing well, but sat there for the weekend before we could be released and held this baby in this hospital. And I remember thinking, this is a really strange Mother's Day. I could sit here on my end of it and be very grateful to be in this position, to be able to take care of this baby, and knowing that my kids are doing well and people are taking care of them while I'm sitting in here.
Yeah.
And another mom is having a really bad Mother's Day, and she's not coming back for her baby. And that's a very hard tension to hold in foster care. That's some of the really difficult things that we just have to kind of wrestle with. The beauty of that story is I got to take her home. She stays with us for 6 months. We get to see her do all of her first little 6-month milestones, which are great. And then we get to the point where it's pretty clear that adoption's not going to be written for us and her in her story. If her case moves on and continues to go to adoption, it just isn't going to be us. And so we actually, the way that God worked that out was pretty neat. And a family that we knew had already fostered and adopted and had looked into opening their home again, and through a mutual friend had connected us. And I said, well, I really advocated through the court with the lawyer, with CASA, to let's do this, because this way the transition could be a lot smoother. It could be kind of phased in. That way it's not just real abrupt. And then that way we could still have some kind of notion and inclination and knowledge of her and interaction.
Well, a big thing for
relationship.
me in that, as we were considering the whole do we adopt, do we not, was one, I definitely didn't feel led to adopt, but I could not imagine this baby that we'd built this relationship with just going somewhere that we had no clue, no control, no anything over. And so one of the things that we begged the Lord in that, if we're not called to adopt, then let us know in some way, shape, form, or fashion that this child is going to be raised in a solid Christian home that will raise her with the fear and admonition of the Lord. And he did something incredible in that, as you were just saying.
Yeah, just matched with this wonderful family who is Christian and actively involved in a local church, and we were mutual friends with, like I said, and so we transitioned there. By the grace of God, CPS actually listened to our recommendations and advocacy, and she transitioned to their home. And the hardest in that, the hard and the good in that is that we know who she is. We have knowledge of her. We see her from time to time walking around. We're like, hey.
We take pictures because we're never together, and then we send it to the other one and go, haha, are you jealous of me?
Yeah, but she has no clue who we are at this age.
No,
and
she hides behind mom.
That's exactly as it should be.
Yes.
Because we want what needed to happen for her in those early days of development.
Yes.
From birth to 6 months. She was in a stable, good, solid home, getting all the medical and therapeutic needs that she needed that helped all of those little synapses and neurons and everything connect like necessary for development to happen.
The ability to trust for your entire life. The ability to trust is foundationally set from 0 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where a lot of the difficulties come from this entire arena that we're involved in. From 0 to 3 months, the ability to trust. And what we had the opportunity to do, what you in particular did, even being willing to sit in on Mother's Day and go, I'm giving this up for this child, set her up on a much better trajectory than ever would have been. Yeah. And it's something we'll never be remembered for.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's fine.
And she'll see pictures someday because we've got them, and she'll go, who are these people?
Who are these people? Yeah.
But that allowed, in many ways, those 6 months allowed her to be able to bond with the family much easier
for life
than she would have had we not stepped in that.
Yeah. And I honestly had to preach this to myself a lot in those days, but I even now will coach or mentor, if you will, other families through this of going like, you are a very good yes for her. And you were her yes for 6 months.
Yes.
But you're not the best yes. And we have to be okay to walk away and step back from that and go, you're right. God's got something even better in store. And it doesn't have to be me. And that's okay to say that. And so now she's thriving, adopted and thriving in
Still
a wonderful family
cute.
and so cute. And doesn't mean there aren't going to be hard days ahead.
Absolutely.
Again, adoption does not undo trauma. It does not completely heal all the things, but we're praying that the Lord in his sovereignty, knowing all of that, has her right where he wants her.
Absolutely.
And had her even from day one right where he wanted her to get her on the path that he wanted her to be. So we got to be a part of that story in a small little way that in that particular case didn't mean forever. And that is, I think, what's really unique to our story.
Yes.
We sit in with support groups, and we have 15 to 20 families that all of our experiences are different.
Yes.
And adoption has been written into a lot of their stories.
Probably the majority. Easily
I
the
couldn't
majority of
even,
our support group.
Off the top of my head, no, but it has not been ours. And kind of from, I would say from the get-go, you and I were not opposed to adoption by any means, but it was like, hey, if that's what the Lord wants, he's going to make that very evident to us, and we'll move that direction. But if not, then in the meantime, all that we are called to do right now is to be the in-between.
Yeah.
To help be there for those kids while reunification is on the table, or until they go to wherever they are going to spend forever. And that a big part of the role that we play has always been an advocate for reunification.
Yes. Yeah, we're not just for the kids, we're for the family. We believe in second chances. We believe in grace. We believe in lifting one another up and pointing people towards Jesus and all of those things. And so
now, knowing that some of those times, right, like some situations have been, the court has said otherwise, and we haven't been necessarily pleased with that outcome and that, right, but we again come back to, we believe in the sovereignty of the Lord, right? And he has his hand on them.
He
and
loves
we're
his kids.
trusting him with that, regardless, right, of when and where they go from there. But kind of unique to us is that reunification has been written into, up until now,
the vast majority.
The vast majority
we went
of
into this with the
stories.
idea of we want to be for the families. We want reunification. If adoption comes, then adoption comes. But we're here to foster kids and be a stopgap. And it's staggering when you look at the statistics versus our experience and the way that the Lord has uniquely, I would say, brought the kids and the stories into our lives that he has. And so on a national average, 50%, under 50% of the kiddos that come into the foster system end up reunified.
Yeah.
So less than 1 in 2 of the kids that come in end up back with their biologic families. So that means more than 50% are open for adoption or go to a PMC type guardianship, right? But in our case, 94%. Only 1 out of 16. 94%.
14 so far, because the 2 we still have are.
They're trending in the right direction
They
as
are,
well.
yeah.
So we're still fighting and hoping for mom and dad on that one and have a unique relationship with them as well. But so far, 1 out of the 16 has been adopted. And so that's 94 versus 50%.
Yeah.
And I think that's the Lord going,
Yeah,
this
I
is
think
what I've
that's on
called you to
purpose,
do.
yeah.
And the one that got adopted, we got to have a little part into where that kiddo is today. And so it's just it's been an incredible story on that front.
Yeah. Not to say that other foster parents or those in our support group aren't for reunification by any means. It's just kind of been like you said, kind of that trajectory of all the kids he's brought into our care, that has been written into their story, and grateful to even be able to play a part in kind of the relationships built there with biological families. And however little or more that is, they were each different. So, and some more receptive than others, but yeah, all still really good and worth it. So,
absolutely. So, maybe shift this a little bit. What are some of the maybe lessons we've learned, some way it's shaped us individually, maybe shaped our marriage, shaped our kiddos? How's fostering really become embedded in the fabric of who we or who the Smiths are?
Oh, goodness. I would say kind of just something that I don't know that we would say it in a tagline of sorts or anything, but it has to do with being comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, I say it's me, but really I think both of us, depending on the season, depending on what we're dealing with, either one of us at any time might be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to foster. It's just a lot easier if we just have just our 3 kids.
Yes.
Do what we want, come and go as we please. We don't have to have all these people checking in on us or tell people what we're doing.
We're a homeschool family also, so we don't have to abide by the
to
school
anybody.
system.
Yes.
We like our autonomy.
You're right. I don't know what that says about us, but
Let it say what it will.
But being comfortable for us. I think there has been times when we've taken a break. Kids have gone back home. We took a break after the young girl that was in our home for 18 months, precious girl, went back home to her dad, and we took a whole year off. That was our longest break ever. Yep. Typically, we're like, oh, we'll take a break, and we like make it a month. And we're like, oh, okay, we'll have more kids come in. And we took a whole year off, and at that point, it was like, this feels too good. This feels too comfortable.
Yeah.
It's too easy. And that sounds weird from maybe the world's point of view.
Yes.
But for us, it's like we know the Lord has called us to live outside of ourselves, and that like He's going to meet us and He's going to sanctify us and grow us in what is hard.
Yep.
And He tells us, join me in my suffering. Like nothing is going to come easy. I've already guaranteed you that. What I have guaranteed for sure is like you're not going to do it alone.
Yes.
And so just
I can remember after, I forget which kiddo it was, but we were on about a month break, and we were laying in bed, and as typically happens, you looked over and you go, what are you thinking? And as I found out talking to other husbands, it's not a rare thing for our wives to do that. What are you thinking? And I'm sure you want us to say something about how beautiful you are, how amazing our family is, or typically what we say is nothing, because as guys, we don't think a whole lot sometimes. But in this in particular case, I remember I was the thoughts going through my mind at that point were, this is comfortable and it scares me. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. There was that phrase. This is comfortable, and it scares me, and that's kind of what I relay, because what we find time and time again throughout Scripture, right? And this is why I think most people don't really experience God in their everyday lives, is because we get comfortable, we chase security, we chase the known,
normalcy.
We chase normalcy, we chase all
certainty.
Of these things, and we never step out in faith. And we never put ourselves in situations where God has to show up where we fail. Yep. Where we never put ourselves in situations where we're brought to the end of our rope and we don't know what to do. Yeah. And we do everything in our power to avoid those situations. And we've lived our lives. That's why we plant a church. It's why we've done the things that we've done. It's the random jumps that we've made throughout with this mindset of we want to see God at work. Mm-hmm. And that's what was going through my mind at that point. This is too comfortable and it scares me, because it's easy just to go, let's just stay right here.
Yeah, let's just stay right here. Why not? This is nice.
Let's just do the normal. Our kids are great. Our family, our life is great. We've got the money we need. We're not extravagant by any stretch, but we're comfortable. We've got all of these things in place.
The American dream. Yep.
We've got the dream. We've got a house. We've got the fence. We've got 2 dogs. We've got all of these things. And I remember going, this scares me. And so we had that conversation that time. And much like you're saying with this one after the year, it's that same kind of feeling of where we want to see the Lord at work. And the place that we and our family are called into is this arena. Mm-hmm. And we see Him so many times. And the hard part of most of it is He's working on us in the midst of it.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a sanctifying factor, for sure. Yeah.
And it drives us to our knees. It drives us to conversations with one another. It drives us to make sure we're on the same page. It drives us to invest in our own daughters as they navigate the system that we've brought them along into. It forces us into so many of these areas. And in the end, we have story after story where we go, our God is real, and He's active, and He's longing for you to join Him in the work that He's doing. Yeah. And His heart throughout Scripture, from beginning to end, his heart is for the vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And who is more vulnerable today than these kiddos? And so we dive in there.
Yeah, and I think that's like what shaped kind of, if I had anything, it'd be that. Like, that shapes our family and kind of what we've gained out of this and what we've taught our daughters and things like that is moving forward with the Lord is not supposed to look comfortable.
Yes.
In fact, the world's going to look at you and think you're crazy.
Yes.
And it makes no sense.
Yes.
And you're like, yeah, exactly. We agree. Yep. It makes no sense. And yet we're just called to show up and to be faithful. Yep. And God, all the time, is faithful. He shows up too.
Yes.
And so I think that would be the one thing that I think has really shaped. So. That's what this has shaped us and the way that we raise our kids and just our whole family dynamic and the way that we approach all of our situations, really. Not just foster care, but everything is kind of like, is it worth the risk if the Lord's asking us to take it? Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, let's chase the eternal and not the tangible. Let's chase what's coming someday, something that will last forever and not just what's going to fade away in the next few years. Mm-hmm.
And so like you were saying, kind of even those bright spots that we see, what makes all of the hard worth it is when we see like the kids thriving and I get to have phone calls with them and parents are still reaching out and talking to us and we get to see kids who were delayed and then they've kind of filled in that gap and they've made progress. And even kind of looking at the current kids that we have right now, there's been some hard days in this. So I'm like, I don't want to raise toddlers again. I feel like maybe I'm past that stage or something. And
we're not grandparents yet, but we're getting close.
Yeah, but when I think of what it might mean if they're not in my home right now. Yeah. Not that if they're reunified, but if they were to have to go to another placement altogether, it brings me to tears to think about that and going, no, like, I don't trust anyone else to make sure all their needs are met. I know what they need, and I know, even with his speech delay, I know what he's saying, and no one else does. And
we've learned their intricacies.
Who's going to reach out and take and be respectful and make sure their parents are updated and send pictures and like. So when I think about what it might mean if we were to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I want comfortable, to be comfortable. It actually brings me to tears to think I can't imagine doing that, and I don't want to. Yeah. Really, in the end. So we see it through. That's why we keep showing up. That's why we keep opening our doors. Yes. And we took that year break, and it was like, we actually sat down with our girls. We're like, well, we need to have a discussion. We have a family meeting. Yep. And we sit down with them, and we're like, well, we really feel like the Lord's telling us to get back into fostering.
You're moving into your senior year. You've got this going on.
You've got so much going on.
Do we need to focus on you?
We think we need to do this, and all of their responses like, well, yeah.
What took you so long?
What took you so long? we were wondering when we were going to do it.
Yep. Yes, I will give up my bedroom.
Yeah, super willing all the time. And so just kind of... those are bright spots for me. That's what makes it worth it in the end.
So as we kind of wrap up this episode, to anybody that may be on the fence or looking forward or bringing others along, is there anything you would say to them? Anybody debating getting involved? Anybody interested in the foster system? Mm-hmm. What would you say? Somebody afraid to even start, maybe? Yeah. What would you say? If this was 2016, what would you need to hear?
Well, for one... If you're even thinking about it, you probably need to do it because there's going to be passions and things laid upon everybody's heart on different fronts and different aspects. And if yours is foster care or it's whatever else it might be, then you need to probably just press into that and jump in and do it. If you don't know how and what that looks like, then I say, we say that sometimes proximity matters. Like, find the places. Like, I reached out. I was trying to find if I needed to be a CASA volunteer, or I went to informational meetings on this and that. Yes. And, of course, all of those things are out there. You can come to Open Homes Initiative, and we can help kind of pair you with all of that.
We'd love to have lunch.
But it's amazing when you look around. That's part of this podcast, right? Yes. Is, like, to go – people do this all the time. Your neighbors right down the street are probably doing this. Maybe not necessarily fostering, right? But, like, it's amazing when you start hearing the stories of, like, oh, well,
how many
my 17-year-old nephew lives with us.
Yes. Yes.
Well, no, it's not necessarily kinship care. It's not necessarily through the court system, but people are entering into these stories in different aspects and ways.
Yes.
And if we will just come alongside them and enter in and go, wow, I just want to get closer to this, then you can't unknow what you know. And that's for me why we keep opening our home, because it's too much for me to know what we know, to be involved with open homes, to have all the proximity to the community and to know of all the needs and not do something. It just doesn't sit well. And that's not comfortable. It's like, that doesn't sit well with me. We have to do something. When I hear about Justin comes home from a meeting with the judge and he's like, hey, there's 3 kids tonight that they don't know where they're going to put them. Yeah. And I'm like, well, did you tell them that they could come here? Like, why would we not? And so I would say jump in, ask the questions, find the information, reach out, and get close to people who are in it and find out the stories. And when you find them out, you can't help but get involved. And so just jump in and just do it, honestly. Yeah. Because the reality is there's a lot of ways to get involved, a lot of wraparound care for sure that we can connect you with. But at the end of the day, we do need more open homes. We need people willing to step up and say, you know what, I have an extra bed. I have kids already, but what's 1 more? What's 2 more? And we have extra room. We have extra beds. I don't mind taking care of some kids for a little bit. I don't mind babysitting, and I don't mind doing respite care. Maybe I start there, and then who knows what that might develop into full-on foster care. But I don't know that that's great advice, but just kind of jumping in and going like, just do it.
Well, I think it's more shows our inclinations or the way that we love and lead our family, the whole idea of the comfort and the like. And so my advice kind of along that would just be to stop and consider, where is it that you see the Lord at work? Like, where in your everyday life do you actually experience him and invest in that? Right? Is there somewhere that there is an inclination? So like you said, if you're even thinking about it, it could be God's invitation to you to go, hey, I want to do something even bigger in your story. I want to make myself known in and through you and your family. And I think the vast majority of Americans today, and this comes from leading a church even and being involved in church work, the vast majority, even of Christians, hear that invitation and they say, not right now. Yeah. Now's not the time. If only this, or if this. And sometimes things do need to happen. We needed a bigger home. Yeah. But moving towards that direction and going, I'm gonna take this invitation and I'm gonna walk that direction. And when we do that, we actually have stories of God at work. And I think the majority of us as Christians don't have those stories because we go, I'm comfortable. Yeah. And I don't want to get involved, or I don't have the time, or I'm going to do this for the next X amount of years. And when I retire, then, well, no, now it's vacation, right? And we don't actually move into that. And so if you are inclined, and even if you're not, the question that I would leave you with is, where's God been at work? And what is he calling you into? Yeah. Because it may not be fostering. It may be some other avenue of this life to love and serve and invest in a kingdom that is eternal and not temporary. Yeah. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up this episode. Hopefully it was encouraging. Hopefully it was challenging. Hopefully there are some names and faces to some of the numbers and statistics. Maybe not actual names. You can have our name, but not necessarily the kiddos. And hopefully you've heard some stories that you've seen matter to us in particular. Hopefully they'll start to matter to you through that, and we know for sure that they matter to God. And so that's why we're telling them. I hope you enjoyed them. Like, subscribe, and enjoy. Thanks.